We're coming at you from the Billy C studio and the LDL TV studio in South Florida. And it's time for another one of our new shows. This is called Billy C's Extra with Scotty Crouse. And speaking of Scotty Crouse, he joins us right now. What's up, Scotty?
Hey, Bill.
Hey, man. We're going to do our inaugural show here, I guess, and hopefully we'll be doing many, many more. And I'm excited about this because on this show, unlike it's kind of like what we do on Wednesdays. We're just going to do it a little more. We got a little more time. We're not pressed for worrying about somebody else coming on following your lead, right?
Yeah, we can sit here and talk like we do when we call each other in the afternoon, and just sit there and chat and talk and argue boxing.
Well, that's typically what we do, but let's talk about some of the stuff that took place this week that I know that we wanted to talk about. First and foremost, we began the week with the Stevenson knockout over Chad Dawson, which I want to revisit. Have you had a chance to let any of that sink in? And I know earlier in the week we both felt that it was the most significant fight of the weekend, even though that it only lasted 76 seconds. It just, those kinds of victories by underdogs especially, it's good for the sport, and it leaves everyone happy, even though they saw 76 minutes of action. And even after the 76 minutes, you look at it, you can't really say anything great about Stevenson other than he won in spectacular fashion.
Well, everyone loves the one-punch knockout. I think that's it might be the most thrilling moment in boxing, one of the most thrilling moments in sports, if you ask me. But it's like the grand slam home run in baseball, or it's like the bomb in the deep bomb in football. And people just love to see points put on the board in a hurry, in a spectacular way. And in boxing, it's not just points that are put on the board. The event ends in a case like this. And it was spectacular and exciting, and I think Adonis Stevenson is certainly a guy whose stock rose very, very high after what he did to Chad Dawson. And yeah, I have thought about it more since we talked about it. When we talked about it on Wednesday, I was looking at it more from a mental standpoint of Dawson. What's wrong with this guy mentally? He just doesn't seem to be in the fight. There's something wrong somewhere. How can he outbox a guy like Bernard Hopkins, who's beaten everybody else, and yet he gets in there and a guy like Pascal or a guy like Adonis Stevenson is able to land these kind of shots and do what he did to him. And a couple of thoughts occurred to me, Bill, as I was going back and reflecting on it and looking at the fight again. Number one, you said something that I think was pretty right on, and that's, I don't think he fully respected Stevenson. I don't think he gave him his respect. Fighters talk trash before fights all the time, and no one does it more than Floyd Mayweather, and yet no one respects their opponent as much as Mayweather does, which is why he trains so hard and he's in such good shape. He's ready for his opponents, even if he's putting them down publicly. It's all an act. He knows better, and he's smart, and he works hard, and he doesn't take anyone lightly. Dawson, some of the things that he said, and you brought that up the other day, it's almost like he believes his own trash talking. And one of the things that made me think that was watching it again and watching how Dawson made a fundamental mistake, which is why he got caught. He got too close to Stevenson. Now, going in there, everyone knew Stevenson was a power puncher. Now, you would think, of course, Dawson would know that and respect that more than anyone. He's in the ring with him. And yet, he gets far too close to him. He's a southpaw, so he's leading, he's jabbing with his right hand, and he gets a little too close to Stevenson, and that right hand is down. Now, it's fine. That's how he keeps it. That's how he works his jab. But he gets close without the use of the jab, which is extremely dangerous. He gets inside. He's clearly within punching range. He's not using his jab. His right hand is down, and it's like a huge target right there for Stevenson, and he lands the bomb and puts him down. And that makes me think, is he just, he has to know better. Is it just a lack of respect, where you put your fundamentals aside, you forget about them for a moment because you're not giving your opponent the type of respect that you should. The more respect you have for your opponent, the more you're going to train, the harder you're going to prepare, mentally, physically, fundamentally, in all ways. But he just didn't seem prepared, and that was just a critical mistake that a guy of his caliber should not be making. Yeah,
well, like we had said earlier in the week, I mean, he clearly took Stevenson lightly, and I'm not so sure Gary Shaw did, because I found one of the strangest maneuvers there was Gary Shaw didn't request a rematch. Now, either he was so cocky that they thought that Dawson was going to win, or it's completely the other side of the coin, because ironically enough, he didn't request a rematch, but he did request, should Adonis Stevenson win, a percentage of his future purses, which obviously he got. So, I'm just wondering if everybody's just totally sick of Chad Dawson, and although he acted like a man, in my opinion, after the fight, taking full responsibility, I think he's a hard guy to work with. I think it's evident now with his performances, and maybe people jumped the gun with him. Maybe Chad ain't so bad.
Well, you know what, Bill? If you tell me you have 11 wives, you're on your 11th wife, I'm not going to think you had 10 bad ones. I'm going to think, what's wrong with you? Why is it that no one can live with you, it seems? Why does you keep getting divorced, and you're on number 11? There comes a point when you think it's not the trainers. It's got to be the fighter. There's just got to be something inherently wrong to have that many. 3 or 4, I can understand some guys, and I totally respect the fighters that stick with the guys that they start with, that go through their careers. You think of Hagler and the Petronelli brothers, fighters like that just are wedded together throughout their careers. They start with them, they go to distance with them, and usually end with them. And I really respect that, but you don't see that a whole lot anymore. Fighters tend to change trainers. You might get 2 or 3 or 4 if you have a long career. That's expected, but 11?
Yeah,
I mean, something is definitely wrong. And the other thing that I was thinking about also was coming back from the Andre Ward fight. Fighting a guy like Stevenson, again, tells me he didn't think much of Stevenson. He probably thought, this guy's just a puncher, he's just a slugger, he doesn't really present a problem. I don't understand why he was matched with him. I mean, I respect fighters who will fight anybody. I like that. Don't get me wrong. But you also have to be smart and time things right. Chad Dawson's coming off of his first legitimate stoppage loss. He was beaten up pretty bad against Andre Ward. And not only that, but the weight issue. There's no doubt in my mind Ward wins the fight and is a better fighter no matter what. So the weight is not an excuse. But at the same time, it did hurt him. Fighters who go down in weight, who are at, not a fighter that moves up for a couple fights and then goes back down, but a fighter who is entrenched at a certain weight class for most of his career and then tries to take weight off, it's almost always career damaging, because you just can't do that to your body. It hurts your body. It weakens your body. You're losing muscle. It's not just taking extra fat off. It's not just a matter of eating a little less. I mean, it can do serious damage to your body and to your career. We've seen it in a lot of fighters. We saw it in Roy Jones when he went up to all the way to heavyweight and then took all that weight off. He was never the same fighter. He was knocked out by Antonio Tarver. We saw it with De La Hoya. And I know that's a sticky point for you, the whole weight excuse. I don't think it's an excuse. I think Pacquiao still stops him no matter what. But I still think he was weight drained. He comes down to a weight class he hasn't really been fighting at, and it does take something out of you. We've seen it out of a lot of fighters. Chris Bird, remember he was a heavyweight, and then he goes all the way down to light heavyweight, and the guy looked like a wet noodle.
No, he looked sickly. That was the end of his career. Yeah, but my issue with the weight isn't the safety issue, and you're 100% correct, Scott. I'm not going to argue that, even if you're going to sprinkle in the De La Hoya against Pacquiao situation. My point is, you can't use it as an excuse once you sign the paper.
Not.
Once you sign the paper, I mean, that particular fight cracks me up because, going into that fight, people were literally scared for Manny Pacquiao. Oh, he's going to get killed. He's crazy. He's this, he's that, he's that. And then as soon as the fight is over, and there wasn't even as much, people said, oh, Oscar didn't look that good. He looked weight drained at the weigh-in. But they didn't really complain and use it as an excuse until after the outcome. Then it was an issue, and that's what bothered me. But I hear you with Chad. I also think that the point that you made about the trainers is a big thing. Alex is in the chat room. He's like, they're not like they're fly-by-night trainers. He's worked with Mayweather Sr., Manny Stewart, Dan Birmingham, of course, John Scully, and the list goes on and on. I mean, it wasn't like they were run-of-the-mill trainers. These were good trainers. Buddy McGirt. So. The guy has obviously got some baggage, and I think that this fight. I think it hurt him more than just losing by knockout, to be honest with you. And I think his bad attitude is been exposed, and I think it's going to hurt him. I really do. I look at it to take that fight a step further. I was always shocked that Bernard Hopkins decided to fight Karo Murat. As a matter of fact, I give him a lot of credit for fighting this guy because, I said to myself, there's no way in hell that Bernard's going to fight Murat because it's not a money fight. I know it's a mandatory. They would have figured out a way to get by it. I'm sure the IBF would have let him do it and all this stuff. And what does he do? He shocks the hell out of me a week later and says, I'm going to fight this guy. And then I gave him all kinds of accolades and kudos for fighting the mandatory guy. And he said the right thing. He said, this guy works his way into the position and I owe it to him and I'm going to fight him. And I applauded him. As soon as the Adonis Stevenson fight was over, when he knocks out Chad, and they asked him, what's next for you? And he says, I want Bernard Hopkins. I said to myself, man, that's a good fight. But I wasn't thinking that somehow the Murat fight would get canceled, and sure enough, it does. And I'm sorry, Scott, I can't think that you're talking a month away. They announced today, the story broke late last night, early morning, that he wasn't going to be allowed into the country because of the visa problems. I'm talking about Karo Murat, and you're talking about the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. You're talking about Bernard Hopkins, who claims he sells out the place. You're talking about an undercard that had some local kids on it, and you're talking about a month away, and Golden Boy pulls the plug on the whole card. I find it pretty strange. I would be shocked if Hopkins Stevenson isn't made soon. What's your thoughts?
Are you saying, wait a minute. Are you insinuating that there's a connection between Adonis Stevenson calling out Bernard Hopkins after a one-punch knockout of Chad Dawson and the fight with Karo Murat suddenly, mysteriously, the visa issues just suddenly appear? Are you claiming there's a connection, Billy C?
Hey, listen, I don't know if they got a unanimous phone call from somebody that kind of sounded like Oscar De La Hoya, the Justice Department, saying, "Don't let that guy in this country, no matter what." I mean, think about it. Think about this. Bernard Hopkins, I was shocked in his last fight that he had people cheering for him because, let's face it, as brilliant as his career has been, he's not known as a ticket seller. He's not. I don't care what he says or what any of his diehard fans say. The guy couldn't draw flies to a garbage convention, all right? I think people are buying tickets to see him now because he's become such a novelty. But let's be real. What's going to make more money for everybody involved? A fight in Montreal against Stevenson, which I'll bet my last nickel that's where the place is going to go because where the fight will go because of the money that will be on the table, or a fight in Brooklyn against some guy that a lot of American fight fans never even heard of. I mean, come on, man.
Well, maybe Murdoch got a mysterious package in the mail that
Had some cash in it.
Maybe it wasn't his Visa, but maybe it was something.
Maybe
a
maybe it was a maybe it was a MasterCard.
More valuable, and he said, well, okay, I'll maybe it's not worth traveling right now.
Hey, you know what? Maybe it was a MasterCard with a whole bunch of money on it. You never know, right? I mean, maybe he got his payday without even getting in the ring with him. Who knows? But we do know that a potential fight with Bernard Hopkins and Adonis Stevenson is going to be a definitely an interesting fight. I, for one, like it. What's your thoughts?
Well, you know what? I like the fight because, it's a relevant fight. Bernard Hopkins just refuses to be irrelevant, no matter how much you might want him to be. And I have all kinds of respect for Bernard, and believe me, to me, you look at my top pound for pound, I think I have him third, which is about as high as anyone puts him. I mean, I think the guy has earned a lot of respect. It's just I don't enjoy watching him fight very much. That's all. And if for nothing other than just selfish reasons, I wish the guy would lose and kind of go away, and I don't have to watch him fight anymore. But he is a master craftsman in a lot of ways, and he's sneaky. He just knows his way around the ring, and he's beating all these young guys with titles. So I mean, what are you going to do? He forces himself to be relevant. You have no choice but to put him in there against the top fighters like an Adonis Stevenson, and fighting in Montreal, he's already fought there, twice against Pascal. So he already has, I don't want to say a fan base, but the fans are familiar with him already. And I think that makes it an even bigger fight up there. So I don't doubt for a second what you're saying as true and probably going to happen. If I'm Adonis Stevenson, I don't want to be in the same room as Bernard Hopkins, much less the same ring. I stay as far away from that guy as possible as a fighter. I just don't want anything to do with him. If I'm in Adonis Stevenson's camp, I tell him, look, we'll fight whomever. I don't care. You name it. I don't care who it is. You want to move up and fight Klitschko, I'll back you there. But you're not going to fight Bernard Hopkins. Because, number one, there's a good chance you're not going to win. And number two, if you win, it's going to be an ugly fight, and you gain nothing from the outcome. So I wouldn't want to have anything to do with Hopkins if I was Stevenson. But, hey.
Hey, listen, if you're listening live right now, we got the phone lines open. Give us a call. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. 845-228-8710. 845-228-8710. But I will warn you, we sometimes hang up on one person, so when we get another person on, we may be hanging up on a whole lot of people. So give us a call, 845-228-8710. Let us know what you think about Bernard Hopkins and Adonis Stevenson. I got a tendency to disagree with you, Scott. I think it's a good fight, and I think it would be kind of a safe fight. Not safe. It's nobody fighting Bernard Hopkins is safe, but I think it's a winnable fight for Adonis Stevenson, and I'll tell you why. Bernard Hopkins, I would think he's chomping at the bit to fight Stevenson because Stevenson is very one-dimensional. And we all know that Bernard Hopkins is very proficient at getting fighters to, fail at their own strength. And his strength, Stevenson, is to come at you and try and take your head off. I think Bernard would be sitting in the pocket and trying to make it an ugly fight, just like you suggest. However, I think that Adonis Stevenson has that just enough punching speed, just enough hand speed, I should say, along with his punching power to pose problems. And if he can be conditioned, now he's no spring chicken either at 35, although he'll be 13 years younger than B-Hop, which is amazing when you think about it. But that guy Stevenson and his style, as long as he can go, as long as he's conditioned to go 12 rounds and putting on the pressure, I think he wears B-Hop down. I think he could come out on top, even stopping Bernard.
I think it's just the opposite. I think this guy, even though he is 13 years younger, I think Hopkins wears him down. And I think he wears him down by frustrating him when he misses those big shots. Now, he's not going to land the punch that he hit Dawson with it, because Hopkins isn't going to make that kind of mistake. His only hope is that he throws the punch and maybe it doesn't land on his chin, but maybe he hits him in the arm, and Bernard has another shoulder injury and falls down, and maybe he wins that way. But I just don't see him connecting cleanly on Bernard, and I think that eventually frustrates a guy like Stevenson, a guy who's muscular, a power puncher. Eventually, after swinging it air and after missing for 4, 5, 6 rounds, then you start to get frustrated. You start to get winded and tired. I mean, remember Kelly Pavlik was supposed to have knocked Bernard Hopkins out. He was supposed to have the power and all that. Tavoris Cloud, a young guy, was supposed to be able to go 12 rounds, well-conditioned, and also has power. Jean Pascal, I mean, all these guys. And yet Bernard did the same thing to every single one of them. He gets in there, and he frustrates them, and they just don't know what to do with him. And it's difficult. You get in there with Bernard Hopkins, you better be as mentally prepared as you are physically prepared. And part of the mental preparation is don't deviate from your fight plan no matter what. You may miss him completely the first 4 rounds. You can't stop swinging. And too many fighters do because they just get frustrated.
You know, from what I understand, the guy at LDL TV in South Florida, our producer, he spells as bad as I pronounce words, Scott. That's all I'm going to say. You know, how I can't pronounce a name. That's the way Alex. I mean, that's the way John spells. We got somebody else on the line right now. I think I just messed up on Scott, so I got to try and see if I can't figure. I think I just hung up on Scott. So, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Henry Haskell.
Hey, Henry, my man. Thanks for calling in. Hey, Henry, I'm going to have to hang up on you right now. Do me a favor. Could you let me get Scotty back on, and can you call me right back?
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, brother. Thanks.
Okay.
I messed up on Scotty Crouse. I hung up on Scott when I wasn't supposed to, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our very own trivia question guru, Henry Haskell. Now I can't find Scotty's. There we go. All right, we'll get Scott back on the line here, and then we'll get Henry back on, and we'll all be cool. I hit the wrong button, and over at LDL TV in South Florida, they're messing up on the spelling. And I'm messing up with everything else. I'm sorry about that, Scott. I got a phone call.
I kind of missed it, though.
Yeah, I know. I got a phone call and I hit the wrong button. I answered from our very own Henry Haskell and hung up on you. I was supposed to click the other button, but Henry's going to call us back, and he provides our trivia questions. So I'm curious to get what his thoughts are on this fight. But Alex, he kind of agrees with, I don't know if he agrees with me. He says he's a young 35 because he's inexperienced because he spent the early part of his life pimping out young women. So we all know that story. But my man from LDL TV in the studio in South Florida, he agrees with what you're saying, Scott.
Well, he's a smart man because I just can't see Bernard Hopkins in a good fight. And I can't see any opponent gaining anything. Now the only thing I can see the potential of happening. I don't think this is what happened, but if Adonis Stevenson can lay out Bernard Hopkins the way he did Chad Dawson at some point in that fight, then you're talking about something huge. Then you're talking about this guy just explodes, kind of like when Thomas Hearns stretched out Roberto Duran. No one could have ever thought of Duran getting knocked out that way. And yet in that second round when he hit him with that right hand and he went face first, Thomas Hearns' stock went sky high, and the fight with Hagler was built with that knockout of Roberto Duran. If he could do something like that, then certainly that would be a tremendous. I don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. I think it's just being a frustrating night overall for everyone, including the fans.
Yeah, well, that's what we usually get with Bernard Hopkins, especially when we're thinking it's going to be something exciting. But I don't know, man. As being such an anti-Bernard Hopkins guy as I am at times, this is one fight that I'd be interested in, but we'll have to wait and see. Some other stuff that took place this week that is a bit of controversy is last Friday night, I happened to have been ringside for the Jorge Melendez and Nick Brinson fight at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino. It was broadcast on Showtime, and I keep saying that as much as I agreed with the referee for stopping the Chad Dawson fight because I felt that Chad was in some serious trouble. There was a lot of time left, over a minute left in that round, and add to the fact that he was not responsive to the referee, who incidentally was trying to give Chad, in my opinion, every chance to continue. And he waved off that fight. Now, that's not what happened in the Melendez-Nick Brinson fight. These two guys were exchanging some serious punches. It was a very exciting fight. And at the end of the fourth round, Melendez caught Brinson with a flurry of punches that sent, in my opinion, Brinson against the ropes. Now, I would ask Alex his opinion, but he was too busy checking out all the chicks all night long. He wasn't even paying attention to the fight. But at that point in time, he was against the ropes. The ropes were clearly holding him up, Scott. At least that's what I saw live. His head was down. His arms was down to his sides. He was pretty much slumped against the ropes. And Melendez came after him, started punching him. He kind of leaned forward. He was off the ropes, and that's when the referee stopped. Started to count. Now, some people, Team Melendez is referring to that as a standing A count, which I don't think so. I thought Charlie Fitch did the right thing. What's your thoughts on the whole protest? Should it have been, stopped? What do you think?
Well, and this was an exciting fight we're referring to last Friday night, the main event of the Showbox card. Brinson, a guy that came in on a week's notice to fight Melendez, who's the up-and-comer here in this fight, and just put on an incredible show, I thought, incredible display of boxing the whole night, except for this one moment where he was caught, and he was just about out on his feet. And if there had been another minute left, he probably doesn't make it. But what I saw, and I watched it again today, I watched just that sequence of events to see what the referee was doing, because Melendez camp is protesting that they're under the rules, there was no standing A count allowed, and that the referee did give Brinson a standing A count, which bought him some time and allowed the fight to continue. That he should have stopped the fight, or Melendez might have stopped it himself had the ref not jumped in and given a standing A count, which they say he wasn't allowed to do, and that's the basis of their protest. However, it looked to me that he was counting a knockdown. When he hit Brinson was hurt. He staggered into the ropes, and that's when the referee stepped in and started to count. The ropes clearly held him up. The ringside announcers thought the same thing, and that Fitch was ruling that a knockdown. I don't know if Charlie Fitch has come out and said one way or another. If maybe afterwards he said, no, I gave him a standing A count, and that's why they're protesting. If they bothered to find out what the referee actually did, it'd be kind of embarrassing if the ref would have to correct them and say, I know, it was a knockdown.
But
I think they'd have their information right before they would file some kind of protest. But it looked to me like he called it a knockdown because the ropes held him up, and in that case, he did the right thing.
Exactly, and I think what they're doing, the way the protest is written, is that they are claiming he used a standing A count because at the time he got in and started the count, Brinson had come off the ropes. It was the punch before that put him in trouble, and his head went down, his gloves dropped to his side, and he was leaning against the ropes. I mean, clearly he was out on his feet, and the ropes would keep preventing him from going down. When the momentum of Melendez went back to try to finish him off, he kind of like fell forward a little bit. So at the actual time when Charlie Fitch stopped the fight for the count, he wasn't tied into the ropes. You know what I mean? His back wasn't leaning against the ropes, and I think that's what they're trying to use as evidence with the film. but he was in trouble. There's no question about it. The ropes kept him up. To me, there's no question about that. What comes into question is the extra couple of seconds he gave him, which he clearly did. Alex and I, as I tore Alex away, his eyes away from the women, and I made him look at that. I mean, we both agreed that he did the right thing in lieu of what was taking place in that fight. And just like you said, the round was almost over. There was less than 10 seconds. The 10-second warning had just sounded, so there's less than 10 seconds. And if he was in serious trouble still, and if Charlie Fitch did the wrong thing by letting him continue, at the beginning of the fifth round, he would have still been in Dream Street, and Melendez could have finished him off. That wasn't the case. He was fully recovered, and we got another 6 rounds of great action. I think Charlie Fitch did the right thing in this case.
I think he did too, and I think the Melendez camp needs to also keep in mind that Charlie Fitch very easily could have taken more points away, if not disqualified Melendez towards the end of that fight for rabbit punches. He hit Brinson behind the head quite a few times in the clinches, obviously hurting Brinson. He went down, he grabbed the back of his head several times, and seemed to be clearly hurt from those rabbit punches. The announcers thought that Charlie Fitch actually did not do the right thing and should have disqualified him. That it went on too long, and Fitch was too patient with Melendez at that point.
It's true. He could have at least taken a point away. He warned him at least 6 times.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the fans in attendance were saying that Brinson was acting. But some of those shots were flush behind his head. I mean, and that last round got a little hairy too.
Yeah. So, Melendez, obviously they're taking this loss very bitterly. It was not in their plans to lose. They were supposed to shine on ShoBox, and especially against a replacement opponent, and it didn't work out that way. So I can understand them being disappointed, but they lost, and they lost fair and square to a guy who took the fight on short notice, who was prepared, who came in, who fought his butt off and his heart out, and pulled out a sensational victory in what was a very good fight.
Well, Scotty, we got Alex Papali on the phone now. Now, I tried to get him to pay attention to a couple of these fights, but he was preoccupied with some other sites. Alex, what's your thoughts on this whole stoppage and everything? I mean, are you in agreement? Do you think he did the right thing? I know we thought he did that night.
What fight?
Yeah, exactly. What fight? The fight that he wasn't paying attention. The fight he wasn't paying.
Even look at the ring, at the actual number that the girl was holding up, or
we could never get to the number, Scott. We would always just watch the girl walk by with the card, and then we both would look at each other and go, "What round was it?" I didn't get up that high. I didn't get up to that high of the girl.
I will say, ShoBox, wherever they might be, they have some of the most beautiful women who are the ring card girls in all of boxing. I'll just say that right now.
Yeah, they did show a couple of these. It was amazing because there was, like we were saying this week, 6, 7, 8 of them, and they did show a few of them on the broadcast. I did go back and see some of my friends.
Yeah, well,
are you talking about the girls or the rabbit punches?
Yeah, well, I tell you, I did also speak to Charlie Fitch after the lights came back on at the place, and everybody was leaving, and he almost seemed eager to talk about it, because I'm sure everything happens so fast, and they are forced to make decisions so quickly. I do think you got to think that the count was something that maybe the camp has something to complain about, and that maybe that first or second, no, I think it was the first tape incident. Those two things, I think, did no doubt save Brinson from being stopped. But I think the rabbit punches, I think Fitch made the right call on that. He even, because I said to him, it did look like some of those were overacting. You don't react like that. I mean, I'm sorry, you never can know what a guy getting hit in the head for these guys. It's an individual experience, whatever. But come on, no fighter reacts like that. That was some drama there.
He was getting tired.
Fitch even said to me that he noticed that because he's worked his fights before, and he's done that before.
Well,
so
he
wasn't falling for that.
He was starting to get
interesting.
He was starting to get tired though, and we saw that. You know, he was breathing hard and everything, and those complaints of hitting behind the head. Not that. I mean, let's be real. Melendez was hitting him behind the head. I mean, there's no question about it.
What Fitch was saying, and this was why he didn't take, make a disqualification case out of it, because the way Melendez was coming forward and Brinson was coming forward at the same time, he was so quickly shortening the distance that the hooks Melendez was throwing would end up sailing behind the head rather than land against the chin. So it was sort of incidental in the way they were coming together, and that's why Fitch was not he was not faulting Melendez for all of it.
Yeah, but Scott, how many times does a referee warn a fighter before he needs to take a point away? I mean, we're there ringside. I think he did at least 6 times. He warned him. I mean, what's your thoughts? Should he have taken a point at least?
Well, if he's going to warn him, and then clearly that means he believes he's committing a foul. So if he's going to warn him that many times, then yeah, I think eventually he's got to stop warning him, and he's got to do something about it. There's got to be some kind of a penalty. If he's not warning him now, if he's saying, look, to Brinson, Melendez isn't it's not all his fault. You need to stop doing this, or you need to stop turning your head, or whatever. Then, that's a ref that's taking control, and he's declaring, look, I don't see it as a foul. But if he's warning the guy, then clearly in his head, there's a foul a foul occurring at that time. So if he's going to warn him several times at some point, then I think he's got to act, and he's got to take a point away, and if it continues, then he's got to do more than that. I find it interesting, though, that Alex said that he talked to the referee, and the referee said that he's refereed Brinson fights before, and he's done it before. I think that's fascinating. That certainly might have played into his thought process in not taking points away.
Well, Alex, I think it was pretty obvious that we were all distracted, including Charlie Fitch, with all those ring cut girls. There was like,
no, I think I appreciate the humor of it, but I don't think so. I think he really did a very good job, with the exception of what I said, that maybe that count was, you could certainly watch that count, but again, it's not supposed to be seconds. It's a referee's count.
Right.
And I thought that the Dawson count this week could have been a little longer. I mean, every referee is going to do it differently. But I do think that, and even the incidents with the tape, that wasn't Fitch who did that. He stopped the action and had the tape dealt with. I don't understand why the commissions don't use waterproof tape. In the first place. I mean, that's something Teddy Atlas rails about every now and then. And then I think
not
the other
Teddy.
thing was that I think the coroner tore it loose a little.
Oh yeah, they both did. Remember, they both had the tape hanging. But anyway, Alex, I appreciate you calling in, man, and giving us your firsthand account, even though you weren't paying attention. Come on, we all.
It was pretty funny because I love doing the tweeting from ringside, and they were making it difficult to tweet. I even confused the fighters in the first bout, and they even had their names written on their belts, and that still didn't help me.
Yeah, but you know what it was? I got to stick up for you. Yes, they did. They did have their names written on their belts, and Alex still got it wrong. Except, I will say this, it wasn't really his fault, because they handed us the bout sheet that was wrong, remember?
The bout sheet was wrong.
The bout sheet was.
I mean, I was like watching some of the fight, looking at the girls, looking at the wrong bout sheet, looking at the fight, looking at the girls, looking at the wrong bout sheet. Then I'd tweet, and I'd be like, "What am I talking about?"
And then I'm sitting there, and there's a guy next to me that just wouldn't shut the F up, and I kept looking at Alex like, "Please, you got any gasoline in a match? I wanted to douse myself and light a cigarette, for God's sakes." It was terrible.
Well, maybe maybe for Alex's sake, to help him pay a little more attention to the fights and get the most out of them, we need to go back to men in tuxedos, walking around and holding up the ring cards.
Absolutely not. Those.
It would up the focus, but it would cut down on the experience. That's for sure.
These, all of them were pretty nice. They were all nice, and it was really nice to watch them perform.
And I wonder if the guys in the tuxedos would get the same reactions when they tried to throw T-shirts into the crowd.
Well, I tell you what, we just look at it this way. It didn't. They weren't getting much reaction back in the day before the '70s when the ring card girls took their positions. So I think they did the right move.
I think that's first started it, right?
In Atlantic
Billy,
City,
you were one of those guys in the tuxedos, weren't you? You're one of the guys that used to go around holding up those numbers, right?
No. Well, I might have once or twice, but I still don't know how you sat through those fights with those big, heavy top hats you guys used to wear back in those days. But anyway, Alex, thanks for calling in. We appreciate your thoughts on that, my man.
All right, guys, take care.
All right, take care. That's
Yeah,
Alex
take care,
Papali. You can catch him on Wednesdays doing the Blast from the Past. So anyway, hey, Scott, we got a couple other things I want to touch on real quick before we wrap up our first episode here. Mikey Garcia and Juanma Lopez. Lopez is basically getting a shot at a title. However, today it was found out that Mikey Garcia could not make weight, so he already lost the belt. Is this good or bad for Garcia? I mean, for Juanma?
Well, it depends on how hard Garcia tried to make weight and how weakened he might have made himself for this fight. If he didn't really try very hard, then I think it's a big advantage for Garcia because he'll go in there bigger and stronger. And in boxing, when you have equals, again, everything being equal, the bigger guy, stronger guy tends to have an advantage. And I think he already had an advantage over Juanma. Juanma just being a little more ring worn than Garcia, being the younger, fresher guy. So if he didn't wear himself out trying to get that weight off, then I think he's going to have a sizable advantage. But if he did, if he weakened himself, then maybe this gives Lopez a shot. Maybe this is his opportunity. Maybe he's able to take Garcia to a place that he hasn't been to yet, because Garcia's not really been in a hard fight yet, and if Juanma has anything left, he may be able to give him that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Garcia is going to be too much for Juanma. I just do. But speaking about too much, Riddick Bowe has been trying to make his comeback for a long time, and thank God nobody's let him do it in boxing. However, they didn't feel the same way in Thailand. They were actually nicknaming him Bow Tie, and he made his Muay Thai debut earlier today or yesterday, however you want to look at it with the time difference, and basically got his ass kicked, Scotty. Two rounds in Muay Thai. His shins are cracked up. He collected his $150,000, but he didn't look too good. What's your quick thoughts? I know it's not boxing, but it is Riddick Bowe. I mean, is this pathetic or what?
It was pathetic. I actually saw it, a tape of it, and it was sad. It's sad enough when they come back to the boxing ring and just look pathetic. But he's 300 pounds. He looks old, and here he is over, way around the other side of the world, and it's not like he was getting punched or hit. It looked like, when you take, a sibling, a smaller sibling, and you grab their shoulders and you take your leg and you kind of trip them and they go falling flat on their rear ends. And it's humiliating more.
Is that what you do? Is that what you do to your kids, man? Is that what you? I gotta call CPS on your ass, man. I mean, is that what you do to those kids? Is that what you do to your damn kids, man? Come on.
Hey, when you got 5, you got to do something to keep them in line, and that seems to work.
It's funny, Scott Crouse is sitting there going, when you got your kid and you trip them when they're trying to go to the refrigerator, isn't that the funniest thing you ever saw? Oh, you don't do that? Oh, I see. Come on, Crouse, what are you doing to those damn kids, man? Jeez.
Well, when I let them out of the closet for some food and some water, then I got to teach him a little respect.
Listen,
So,
Scott Crouse is only kidding. So please don't. I don't want to get any of the hate mail.
Please don't show up at my front door and take my kids away.
He's
I'm only teasing.
He's only kidding.
We let him out of the closet more than once.
And believe me, they get more than bread and water. But anyway,
it was sad. I mean, his opponent just put him down 5 times, just tripping him, just kicking his leg, sweeping his leg out from underneath him. Reminds you of the Karate Kid. Remember, sweep the leg.
Yeah.
That's what he did to Riddick Bowe, and all 300 pounds of him hit the deck 5 times, and in the final time he couldn't get up. His legs hurt too much, and it really, really was sad to watch that. I mean, because this guy at one point really held the heavyweight division and the sport of boxing in the palm of his hand after he beat Evander Holyfield. And I believe, and I realize I'm probably one of the few, if he had fought Lennox Lewis in that kind of shape, then he was the night he beat Evander Holyfield, the best shape of his career, I think he would have beat Lewis. And I think he would have, he had the potential if he didn't have all those issues with his self-discipline. And of course that makes him who he is, so it's kind of, I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth, I suppose. But if he had been a more disciplined fighter, then I think he could have been one of the top heavyweights of all times. He had the size. He just had so much skill. He had the great Eddie Futch, teaching him and training him. He had everything going for him, but he just couldn't discipline himself. And he came into fights overweight, and after he won the title, he just could never get himself in that same kind of shape again. And I think it's sad. And to see him now, just not even a shell of who he was, it's really not something I enjoy.
No, I hear you. But like I always say, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. So that's the way. That's the way it is, And he was a guy that I agree with you. He was one of the most. I mean, we could look back on his career today and say he really was one of the most wasted talents. He had it all. He had size. He had speed. He had knockout power. He had charisma. This guy, I'm sure he regrets it, and I think that we saw, him taking that chance in the Muay Thai ring as an indication of that, because he's trying to, and he got paid well for that beating. So anyway,
and what he said though, he had charisma. Don't underestimate that. He had personality.
I know.
I mean, he said not since Muhammad Ali was there a heavyweight with the kind of personality and charisma that could command crowds and charm people as much as what Riddick Bowe had. Larry Holmes always wanted to be Ali. He just never could, and no one could ever be Ali. Not until Riddick Bowe. He had that twinkle in his eye. Yeah. He had that charm.
He had that smile
way about him.
Remember that smile?
And
he had that kind of that grin / smile that worked. It wasn't a fake smile like Floyd. It was like, you're right. It was. I hate using Ali because I think everyone tried to copy him, but I think Riddick Bowe had it all, man. He did. It's a shame what happened to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Scott.
Speaking of happening to fighters, now you have James Page, former champion, who apparently is Jesse James and Billy the Kid all wrapped into one.
Hey, listen,
it has this string of bank robberies.
Get it straight. He's the button-down bandit. The thing about him is how can you put? If you saw pictures of his getup, he would button a white collar shirt all the way up to his neck and wear the black rimmed glasses, and he would walk into the thing, and he robbed the bank. Apparently, he's been robbing banks since March. They got him connected to 10 bank robberies, but the thing is how do you proceed? Button-down bandit with the word notorious. I could see, Jesse James was notorious, Bonnie and Clyde were notorious, but the button-down bandit, it's like, he robs a bank with a screwdriver, he makes your glasses really wobbly or something. I just, the word notorious just doesn't fit in with that, man.
Well, I hear that. I think of Home Alone and the Wet Bandits. You know, they go in and they rob the place, and they stop up the sink so it floods, and they call themselves the Wet Bandits. And the police said, "Well, great. Now we know every single house that you burglarized because you left your mark." I think some criminals just the judge has got to be holding back laughter.
Hey, what about some of the ones I've heard where they rob a place, they fall asleep, they rob a liquor store? The best one I saw on like some show, a guy breaks into a liquor store to rob it. He starts drinking while he's in the liquor store, and the cops found him there passed out, sleeping in the liquor store with all his stuff. I mean, that's stupid. That's almost well, I can't say because he's not with us anymore. Hey, Scott, we're going to cut this show because the fights are on right now. We're going to cut a little short, but before we go, the main event tonight on NBC Sports is Bryant Jennings against Andre Fedosov. And I don't know about you, but I'm a huge fan of Bryant Jennings. I think this kid is phenomenal for what he's done. My only problem with the guy is that I think he's too short, too small, I should say, to challenge a Klitschko. But other than that, he's an exciting heavyweight. Give me your thoughts.
Well, you know what? There's two goals of a heavyweight. It's can he, or two criteria. You describe him in two ways. Number one, is he a top 10 heavyweight? And Bryant Jennings is a top 10 heavyweight. I'd like to see him fight some guys in the actual top 10 and see how he does, because I think he would beat him. I think he's pretty good. But then there's also, well, can he beat the Klitschko's? That's the ultimate criteria, the ultimate test. And, I don't see anything in him that would beat a Vladimir or a Vitaly Klitschko. And like you said, a lot of it is simply the size. But I think he's got the skill to be competitive with everyone else. And sometimes at least in today's heavyweight division, that might be all you can ask for. Hey, I might not be able to beat a Klitschko, but if I can be competitive with the other heavyweights, then I can at least have a decent career, make some money, and maybe that's what he can do. I also just want to mention this, the undercard, Sergey Kovalev, light heavyweight. This guy is pretty impressive. He knocked out Gabriel Campillo in his last fight. That was pretty brutal. How would you like to see Kovalev and Adonis Stevenson? I mean, I think that would be bombs away. I don't think it'll happen. I hear Kovalev and Nathan Cleverly may meet down the road if Kovalev gets by Cornelius White tonight. But can you imagine Kovalev and Adonis Stevenson? That's the kind of fight I want to see. Yeah.
Well, I think Adonis is going to be making. He's going to be setting his girls up, and I don't mean the ones he did time with, but I think he's going to be setting up his family with his fight against B-Hop. I think that's the one that's going to be made. But
yeah, he's going to be watching B-Hop roll around with his hand behind his head, and Alex mentioned Princeton putting on one of the best shows. And I was like, wait a minute. Nobody can act in the ring like Bernard Hopkins.
This is true.
He is the Denzel Washington, the Henry Fonda, the Al Pacino of boxing. Come on, nobody acts better than this guy.
You're right. You're 100% correct. Hey, Scott, I'm really looking forward to this show that you and I are going to be doing now on a regular basis, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. We are cutting out a couple of minutes early, but you can catch us every Friday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on LDL TV. And, Scott, in the future, I know that we both plan on having a lot more interaction with the fans, and we're going to have some fun, man. We'll give some prizes away and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to this, and I'm glad that we finally made it happen. I know you and I have been talking about it for a while, and I'm glad it's here, my man.
Absolutely. Can't ever talk too much boxing, and I always enjoy talking with you, and hopefully soon we can interact with the fans because they make this sport happen.
I agree, brother. All right, well, listen, I'm Billy C., Bill Calogero, and I'm joined here with Scotty Crouse, and we're going to cut out right now, but we'll see you next week. Right, Scott?
That's right.
All right, man. Keep your hands up and keep your chin up. What is it? Keep your chin up and keep your ass off the canvas. Yeah. That's it. We'll see you next time. Ciao, baby.